So in this session, we will discuss about the trends of inflation over a past decade. Okay, so last 10-12 years, we will see the inflation and how is it increasing, decreasing. The trends is what we are going to see here. And we will also talk about growth. We will compare inflation and growth. What are the reasons for decreasing growth, and what are the measures that RBI and central government do, and how is it affecting the growth? Everything we will compare here. Actually, we have done most of the concepts related to inflation. We have discussed what is inflation, what are the different types of inflation, demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, what are the reasons for each of them, and what are the measures that RBI and the central government takes to control inflation. And we have discussed monetary policies like increase in interest rates and increasing reserve requirements in case of inflation. And if you need to promote growth, the opposite, that is the expansionary policy that you follow, decrease the reserve requirement and decrease the interest rates. And fiscal stimulus also you will go in case of expansionary monetary policy. You will go for expansionary fiscal policy. You will go for a lot of fiscal policy measures like tax will reduce in case of expansionary policy, and you will increase the expenditure, government expenditure you will increase. So you can see here budget deficit is common during this phase if it is expansionary fiscal policy. And if there is an inflation, this is to promote growth. Okay, so in this context, growth will increase. So if inflation is high, you have to go for a contractionary fiscal policy like contractionary monetary policy. So there you will increase the taxes so that the disposable income with the people will come down, so demand will come down, so purchasing power also will come down, so inflation will come down, but it affects the growth. Okay, similarly government expenditure will reduce, it ultimately reduce the money supply, so demand will come down and inflation can be controlled. So this is what we have discussed, and we have also talked about the terms related to inflation, all the related terms, the inflation, disinflation, deflation, reflation, skewflation, stagflation, Phillips curve, misery index, throttling inflation, running inflation, galloping inflation, hyperinflation, all these things, all these terms we have discussed. So all those things that we have discussed, we are going to connect here by seeing the trends over the last 10 years. Okay, so we'll take up from 2007 onwards till 2019 we will go. So 2007 onwards is what we are going to do, and I will divide into 4 phases. And you can see in different phases, different monetary policies and fiscal policies are followed. So actually you can connect it with what all things that we have discussed so far. Okay, with that we will complete our discussion on inflation, and then we will also discuss about briefly Urjit Patel Committee and the monetary policy framework in the next couple of sessions. Okay, so here we will be talking about trends of inflation. Trends of inflation. Okay, so let me draw the graph, and with that we can understand. So I'm starting from 2007. Okay, starting from 2007. On the y-axis, I will go for inflation rate. So inflation rate, and I'll take 2 reference values, 5% and 10%. Okay, so let me keep 5% here. This is 5% line. Okay, so RBI want to limit the inflation to 5%. And after Urjit Patel Committee, it was inflation targeting, which is the important priority to the RBI, and the ideal rate of inflation is understood as 4%. So I'm keeping it 5% because RBI wanted to limit it to 5%. And one more reference line I'm taking, that is 10. Okay, so here 10%. So 5% is normal when it comes to India, and 10% is going to be very high inflation. Okay, so this 5%, this different values are different for different countries. For developed countries, it may not be the 5% itself might be very, very high, because in their case their demand and their supply is elastic. So when the supply is elastic, the chances of inflation is so less. and they target 2% of inflation, and that is not possible in case of India. The demand is so high, you cannot, the supply cannot meet the demand. So here that is not the case. In UK and developed countries, that is not the case. For them, 2% is actually the ideal rate of inflation, and it varies for different countries. So let's try to understand the case of India. So here, starting from this, from here 2007, it was around 6. Okay, let me go with another. Then it went high. So let me go for this phase up to 2009. Second phase here, this 2011. Okay, third phase is 2013-14, this period. Okay, like this. So inflation, if you see, this is how it is going. So during this time it reached at its peak. Okay, and it came down drastically 2010, slowly picked up, okay, and went on, increased, and it almost remained like this. 2013 it started coming down, okay, and then it is going like this. So now you can see around 3% inflation during 2019 2020 during this phase. So almost this is the level, and this is how it is going. Okay, so first phase, this is the first phase, this is the second phase, this is the third phase, and this is the fourth phase. So we are just trying to understand in this fourth phase. Okay, so here when it was reached at its peak, it was 13% inflation that year. Okay, 2009. Now, why fourth phase inflation actually decreased? Inflation decreased in fourth phase because crude oil prices have came down drastically. Then why this was so high in third phase? If you see here, crude oil prices was so high, and it also accompanied with food inflation. So if you remember, I've told you food items are inelastic, and if their supply cannot meet demand easily, so even the small variation in supply can cause huge change in the price level. So that is what actually happened. It is because of food inflation. So we have discussed that food inflation was one of the reasons. So food prices was so high during this phase, and fuel also. Okay, so if you take core inflation, you won't see much difference. Why? Because core inflation was actually excluding the food and fuel. The sensitive items are actually excluded, or the most volatile items are excluded in the core inflation. So food, fuel, fertilizers are actually excluded. So this phase, third phase, inflation is high because of food inflation and fuel. Okay, now it is coming down. During this fourth phase, it is coming down because fuel prices are coming down. So you can see here, starting from 5% only, it reached at its peak in 2009. That year it was around 13%, and that after the global financial crisis, it has come down drastically, and then it started increasing slowly, and then again it went beyond 10% because of food inflation and fuel, price increase, and then it came down. Okay, so this is a trend. So let's see phase 1. What is the reason for phase 1? In case of phase 4, we have understood fuel prices was low, so inflation is actually coming down. Phase 3, inflation is high because of food inflation and fuel inflation. So mostly the reasons for high inflation is because of supply, cost of production. Okay, so fuel is one of the most important reason. If you can see the prices are increasing, fuel is not in your hand. It is not in the hand of government. It is not in the hand of RBI. So fuel is one of the most important reason for increase in inflation. So crude oil price increase. So then food inflation was also there. See, world level also at this time, food inflation was so high, the prices were so high, so we could not import, wheat also because of its high prices. When we import wheat at high prices, it is going to affect the forex. You need to pay more forex. So it was difficult for you to import the food items also at this point of time. Otherwise, if we face shortage in food here, we can import it, okay, so that we can control or we can match the supply. But here, what the problem that we faced is world level also the prices of food was so high during this phase. So food inflation, and then sharp increase in forex. This time sharp increase in forex. See, I am talking before 2008. That means 2008 global financial crisis there. Before that, all the investments are coming in the stock exchange. So huge increase in forex was there. So when huge increase in forex is there, what does that mean? When forex is coming, equivalent amount of money has to be given by the RBI. So that money will be used in India. It is for using in India only that money is forex is coming, right? So when that money which was there with RBI, it is not part of money supply. When the forex is coming, that money is given to the person who is coming or investing. Then he will be investing that money in India. So then it will be a part of money supply, right? So then what will happen? Forex is coming means, simple language, money supply is going to increase. Money supply increase means your purchasing power will increase. That's it. Purchasing power in the entire economy will increase. Okay, so money supply increase, purchasing power increase. So what will happen? Aggregate demand will increase. So that lead to inflation. The discussion related to this we have already done, so I'm not getting into the details of this technicalities. The technical aspects of inflation we have already covered in much more detail. So these are the reasons for high inflation in phase 1. Then what happened in phase 2? So you can see here, phase 2, there is a reduction, right? There is a huge reduction and it is coming below zero also. So why? Because of subprime crisis in US, right? So the global financial crisis, one of the global financial crisis. So I hope you know about subprime crisis in detail. So we will be discussing in detail about all this crisis. Okay, so later. So subprime crisis means, subprime means the less credit worthy lending. It is caused actually due to the less credit worthy lending. Everybody started borrowing and they started investing in real estate, and the prices have gone up, and finally it was a bubble, it was burst, and it was actually a huge collapse. Okay, so that we will discuss later. So what is the impact on India? The banks and financial institutions suffered huge losses. Okay, so impact on India, if you see, when this happened, all the money which was invested before that. See, when you are borrowing from there, okay, in US, when you are borrowing, your interest rate is so low, you can borrow, and what you will do, you will invest that in relatively higher interest rate countries, right? So in India, they started investing all those money. So forex has come down. They started investing in stock exchange also. Okay, so when this crisis was there, all this money was withdrawn. So that led to flight of capital. So what will happen then? The banks and financial institutions suffered huge loss there. So it led to withdrawal of investment. Okay, so withdrawal of investment means, how will you withdraw? You have to sell your shares in stock exchange, so BSE and NSE. So that led to sale of shares in BSE and NSE. Now when you start selling excess amount of shares in BSE and NSE, what will happen? The share market will collapse, Sensex will come down. So what happened with Sensex? Sensex came down. It in fact came down from 22,000 to 8,000. Such a big change it was there at that time. Okay, so that is the impact on India. When we discussed about quantitative easing and quantitative tapering, I have discussed with you with all the technicalities. How is it going to happen? How is it going to affect India? How is it going to benefit India? Quantitative easing, how is it benefiting in India by with the arrival of forex, and what is the threat? Everything we have covered, so I'm not getting into the detail of it. So Sensex has come down, Nifty also came down. So what happened now? The forex is withdrawn, right? The dollar is going out. So when the dollar is going out, how is it going to happen? The demand for dollar is increasing, right? So demand for dollar will increase. So what will happen? Because these people are looking for dollar now, they want to take the capital back. So that has to be taken back in terms of dollar by giving rupee back. Okay, so now if you see, this is a normal situation. There is a aggregate demand of dollar. So the demand for dollar, and there is a supply for dollar. So this is quantity, and this is the price in terms of rupee. The price of dollar in terms of rupee on the y-axis. So demand for dollar increase now. What will happen? This is the current position, ideal situation. Let's say 60 rupee for $1. Now what happens is the demand for dollar is increasing. The demand curve shift rightward like this. So you can see here the price of dollar in terms of rupee is increasing. So the 60 becomes 70. Okay, now this is what you call as depreciation. Earlier for $1 you need to pay 60. Now you need to pay 70. So this increase is what you call as depreciation. Okay, and this system is what you call as floating exchange rate system, and our system is managed float or dirty float, because RBI can interfere here. So if the enough supply, if demand increased, that much supply if you can provide, then there will be no problem, the price remain the same, because demand is 10%, supply also increased by 10%, no problem. But RBI don't have enough forex to supply to interfere in the forex market. But the question is, can you interfere in the forex market? Yes, in that context it can be called as managed float, because you can manage, there is a provision that you can manage or you can manipulate, or rather it is known as dirty float. Okay, but there is a limitation that RBI cannot do, because RBI don't have enough forex. So here now what will happen, because of this lead to depreciation of rupee, right? So that lead to depreciation of rupee, that is one of the most important problem, or I would write here rupee convert to dollar, because the investors have rupee, or they will get in terms of rupee, that when they are taking it back, they will convert that in terms of dollar. So rupee convert back in terms of dollar. So when rupee convert back in terms of dollar, then what will happen? See, we are actually discussing here why inflation has come down in the second phase. Okay, so rupee now is going to give to RBI and take dollar from RBI. So the rupee which was there in the circulation, which was part of money supply, now going to be with RBI. So when it was with RBI, it will not be counted as part of money supply, it won't be counted as part of M0. Okay, so this is not the cash reserves. Cash reserves are part of M0, so don't be confused here. Cash reserves are part of M0, but this is not part of M0, because this is kept idle with RBI. So this rupee which was there in the market now will be taken by that for the investors, and will give it to RBI. They take dollar back and they will go. So rupee is with RBI, so it won't be part of M0. So ultimately what will happen? Money supply will reduce. Money supply will reduce means, what is the impact? Money supply will reduce means purchasing power will come down. Purchasing power will come down means aggregate demand will come down. So what will happen? You will see inflation has come down. So this is what actually happened during the second phase. Second phase, we are actually discussing why the inflation has come down. The inflation has come down because of global financial crisis, and I have told you how is it affecting India. So withdrawal of investment, that led to share of selling of shares. So flight of capital, that means money supply has reduced, so inflation come down. But what is the disadvantage here? When we discuss about growth, I will also take up growth and we will compare that here itself in this session. So during this decade, so you will see growth has come down during this period. You know why is it? Okay, so when growth has come down, now what do you think what government will do during this phase? Growth has come down, inflation also came down, so now there is no threat of inflation, growth came down, so you need to go for fiscal stimulus, right? So government have gone for fiscal stimulus. Fiscal stimulus means what? You will do different things like increasing public expenditure, you will reduce the tax, all these things is what are part of fiscal stimulus. So automatically money supply will be there. At the same time, since inflation has come down, RBI also reduce the interest rates. Okay, reserve requirements will reduce. So what you will do at this phase, you will follow a expansionary monetary policy. Okay, so here in this phase, so here inflation was high. You can see here inflation was so high, so you will follow a contractionary monetary policy. Here you will follow an expansionary monetary policy. So because of this expansionary policy, what will happen? Again demand increase, so money supply increase, purchasing power increase, so again inflation will come. Okay, because of expansionary monetary policy, and that is the reason for increasing food prices. And fuel inflation you can't control. That is the reason for inflation in the third phase. So in the third phase, which measure you will do? You will not go for expansionary, you will go for contractionary, because you need to control inflation. So what I want to tell you here is, you can see here the first phase, phase 1, which policies you will do. See here the threat is inflation, so you don't mind about the growth at the stage when the inflation is so high, it reached to 13. So first phase you will go for contractionary monetary policy and fiscal policy. You know what are they? Okay, so monetary policy means RBI will do that using their tools with RBI like SLR, CRR, repo, reverse repo, marginal standing facility, bank rate. All these requirements will increase. so money become more dearer. Okay, so the second phase, now inflation has come down drastically, so now you need to promote growth, so you will go for fiscal stimulus and reduce interest rates and all for promoting investments. So expansionary monetary policy and fiscal policy. I'm not writing it completely. So what about the third phase? So in the third phase, you will see here inflation is high, so controlling inflation is the most important priority. So what you will do? The contractionary monetary policy, and you can see here during this phase 13 times repo rate was increased by RBI, and government and RBI has come with a lot of issues during this phase. But RBI is keep on increasing the monetary policies, but fiscal policy there was not much decrease, or the fiscal stimulus is not reduced much. Here you can see huge fiscal stimulus was given. Here you can't do that because of political constraints. I've told you when we discuss about fiscal stimulus or fiscal policies, there are some limitations for fiscal policies, right? Because of the political pressure, political compulsion, you cannot take away fiscal stimulus drastically. Okay, so because of political compulsion, fiscal stimulus actually marginally reduced. Contractionary policy, obviously RBI tightened the policies, interest rates increased for 13 times consistently. So the entire burden on controlling the inflation was actually with RBI, because government is not, reducing the fiscal stimulus. It reduced marginally only. And RBI have increased the rates consistently 13 times, repo rate increased 13 times. Okay, so what will happen? The investment has come down, GDP growth also decreased. I'll show you that GDP trend here. Okay, now the fourth phase, what you will do? Fourth phase, inflation is coming down. So because crude oil prices come down, so now in this phase you can go for expansionary policy, because you can promote growth, right? So expansionary monetary policy, so that investment will increase and growth will be promoted. Let me show you the growth over this period. So 2005 to 2008, consistently growth was over 9%. Okay, so consistently GDP growth was over 9% from 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. During this period, 9%. Then 8-9 during this phase. During this phase, 6.7. 8-9 growth was 6.7. 9 to 11, if you see, growth was more than 8 because of huge fiscal stimulus by the government. And also I told you expansionary monetary policy and expansionary fiscal policy. So because of fiscal stimulus, growth was so high. Then 12 to 11 to 13, it was less than 6. See, if you calculate with the old method, it is around 4.5 only, but as per new method, it is around 6%. Why new method? What is new method? All these things we have discussed in our discussion on national income accounting. The changes in national income accounting, you can get that videos in here only. So you can watch that video. The national income chapter we have done. The changes in national income accounting methodology also we have done. So there I have discussed this concept also. I have discussed why this growth has increased after the new method. So 13-14 it is 6.6, then 14-15 7.2, okay, then 15-16 7.6, then 16-17 it is 7.1, then 6.8, then 6.1, like that it is going, right? So you can see here, see, when we are going for contractionary policy to control inflation, growth is actually coming down. That will be reflected in the next phase. So here you can see growth is actually coming down to 6.7. Okay, and then when you went for expansionary monetary policy, growth is actually increasing to 6. And here during this phase, because of inflation, you are going for contractionary policy. The growth is coming down less than 6. Okay, so that is solely because of the contractionary monetary and fiscal policies to control inflation. And then you can see that inflation is steady, the growth is steadily increasing because inflation is decreasing. So there is a reverse relationship with growth and inflation. So that is what you need to understand here. There is a reverse relationship between growth and inflation. The reason is, when there is inflation, the prime objective of RBI is to control inflation. So what RBI will do? RBI will reduce the money supply. RBI can't do anything with the supply side. So RBI can control only demand pull inflation. So RBI will try to control the demand only. So RBI will reduce the money supply. So RBI will increase the reserve requirements by following a contractionary monetary policy. As a result, investment will come down, so growth will come down. So that is why during the contractionary period, the growth will come down. Now fourth phase, you can see inflation is low. So now interest rate is decreased. So investment is there, growth is steadily picking up. Okay, so I hope you understood all these concepts. So we have talked about inflation, types of inflation. We have understood the trends of inflation. What I want to tell you here is what are the policies RBI and central government will do. What do you mean by contractionary policy? What do you mean by expansionary policy? So in different phases, what are the reasons for inflation, or what are the reasons why inflation has come down, and what are the measures that RBI and the central government done in these four phases. So I hope you understood how global financial crisis affected the inflation and growth in India. We have discussed in detail when we discussed about quantitative easing and quantitative tapering. Apart from that, we have done that discussion now also. So investment will go means what will happen? Demand for dollar will increase. That lead to depreciation of rupee on one side. That is one side. That is, see, we have discussed about trilemma, right? Monetary policy trilemma. So here, what are the trilemma? Inflation has come down. Okay, that is a priority. Then growth decreased. But here inflation came down not because of RBI action. It is because of less money supply. Why less money supply? Because money is taken back. Flight of capital. It is, this money supply reduction is not due to contractionary policy of RBI. Okay, otherwise money supply is reducing and inflation is reducing because of contractionary policies of RBI. Here, because of the flight of capital, money supply has reduced and inflation has come down. Automatically growth has come down. Automatically depreciation of rupee. Otherwise, depreciation of rupee and growth reduction is accepted to an extent because RBI is purposefully reducing money supply. Here that does not happen. Here not purposely done. It was done because of flight of capital. That is the problem with quantitative tapering. Here not tapering. Here it is because of financial crisis. So I hope this is clear. If you have any doubt, get in touch with me here. Join the Telegram channel for all the economy videos.